Eagle 95.1 WUPN Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.
It's time for The Game. Eagle 95.1 proudly brings you The Game, the Twin Sault's only regional and national sports show. For the next hour, we'll get an in-depth look at sports in the Eastern Upper Peninsula and Algoma region and hear from coaches and players involved in The Game. Now, let's join Scott Nason at the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan for tonight's broadcast of The Game on Eagle 95.1.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game!
Glorious! No, I won't give in till I'm victorious. And I will defend.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to The Game on this special Tuesday night edition, March 27th, 2018. My name is Scott Nason as we are broadcasting from the studios of Eagle 95.1 FM in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, on Ashman Street, talking local, regional, and national sports. Now, normally we are broadcasting from the Wicked Sister on Monday nights, but now with the spring sports season upon us, our schedules get a little more complicated on The Game, so we're going to be doing some of our shows from the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street. Scott, Kathy, the entire staff, always a good time to be down at the Wicked Sister. We'll continue to tell you what's going on down there, but we'll also be doing broadcasts from our studios on Ashman Street during the week. We're always going to have one show up during the week online from Sault, Michigan. Our good friend Dave McKegg has his shows from Sault, Ontario, including Sports Center Bar and Grill and Boston Pizza. So we're going to keep the local, regional, and national sports talk coming. We're just going to be doing it at different times. You can hear all broadcasts of The Game on the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. That's thegamesportshow.podbean.com. We'll also be having shows on our website, still under construction, but we're getting that under our belts, thegamesportshow.com, or you can go to the YouTube channel. Just look up the Scott Nason channel. There you can find all our broadcasts in one place. We'll be joined later on by Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports. We'll talk about the Metro Detroit sports scene. Believe it or not, looking outside and seeing some drizzle and some snow on the ground. Opening day for the Major League Baseball season just a little over a day and a half away, as the Tigers will open up Thursday afternoon at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll talk to Butch about that. We'll talk about the NCAA basketball tournament, Michigan making the Final Four. We'll also have to talk about the Pistons and the Red Wings. Not a lot of good news down in those two organizations, but we'll talk about it with Butch coming up here momentarily. First, let's get to the local sports scene. Lots of local sports still going on around the Twin Saults, including the Sioux Eagles and Sioux Thunderbirds border battle in the Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League. They are continuing their West Division semifinal. When we last talked on The Game, we were only in Game 1. And while the Eagles tied the series at 1 last Monday night over at the John Rhodes Arena, as Kobe Keller scored on the power play with just over 6 minutes remaining to give the Eagles a 3-2 win over the Thunderbirds in Game 2. Jake Palmerio and Johnny Vitale also scored for the Eagles. Nick Smith and Noah Solinger each scored for the Thunderbirds, as Carter McPhail made 37 saves in recording the win. Brandon Gordon made 32 saves in the defeat for the Sioux Thunderbirds. So the Sioux Eagles would snag home ice advantage, and they would capitalize in both games 3 and 4 and they were led by the standout goaltending of Carter McPhail. On Wednesday, the Eagles won that game by the score of 3-0, as Carter McPhail finished with 30 saves to record his first shutout of the playoffs. Austin Rowe had a goal and 2 assists to propel the Eagles to a 2-1 series lead over the Sioux Thunderbirds at that point. Brendan Gordon would have 27 shots and make 24 saves in defeat, and Eric Shook would come in on relief in that game. We'll talk more about him in a moment. Game 4 saw another shutout by Carter McPhail, back-to-back shutouts, and he really played especially well in Game 4. Now, if you want to hear the home broadcast of this series, you can go to this podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. There you can find the audio podcast that myself and Larry Pozzebon do from Puller Stadium on Hockey TV. In Game 4, Carter McPhail was spectacular, turning aside all 27 shots and recording his second straight 3-0 shutout, as the Eagles would win by the score of 3-0 to take a 3-1 series lead in that one. Kyle Quinn also scored, along with Hayden Clark and Austin Rowe, as the Eagles take a 3-1 series lead in that one. And Game 5 was at the John Rhodes Community Center on Saturday, and it was a 3-0 shutout. However, it was the Thunderbirds that would get the shutout. Eric Shook turned aside all 27 shots as the Thunderbirds staved off elimination on Saturday with a 3-0 win over the Sioux Eagles. That would cut the series deficit to 3-2. As Carter McPhail would finally give up a goal after a little over 191 minutes of shutout hockey, as Caden McDowell would score the first and what decided to be the only goal the Thunderbirds would need. Cameron Baber back in the lineup, and boy, was he a difference in that game and the one we're going to talk about here in a moment. He also scored along with Mark Tassone. So last night we were at Puller Stadium on Hockey TV for the broadcast of the Sioux Eagles and Sioux Thunderbirds Game 6. You knew that the Thunderbirds were going to come out on fire, as it was a must-win for them, and you thought that the Sioux Eagles were going to come out on fire. Well, they didn't come out on fire, and it was a late second-period goal that was the difference, as Robert Kalisti scored an unassisted goal with 7 seconds left in the second period after an Eagles power play, lifting the Sioux Thunderbirds to a 2-1 win over the Sioux Eagles in Game 6 of their NLJHL West Division semifinal. So now the series is tied at 3 games apiece, setting the stage for a 7th and deciding game, which will be played tomorrow night, Wednesday night at the John Rhodes Community Center at 7:30 a.m. The Eagles got their only goal from Jake Lamberti on a deflection in the first period, and Tanner Main would knot up the game at 1. And Eric Shook played well in net for the Thunderbirds, made 28 saves to record the victory. Carter McPhail, he played very well. That game could have easily been 5-1, if not more, as he made 33 saves in taking the loss. So the Eagles, Thunderbirds, Game 7 tomorrow night at the Rhodes. This is the first ever Game 7 between these two squads in their playoff history, and it's the first ever Sioux Eagles Game 7 that they have played. They did play a Game 7 back when they were the Sioux Indians, I believe in 2006, 2007. That's the only Game 7 in franchise history. So what do you think? Who's going to have the edge? Well, obviously the Thunderbirds have the home ice advantage. They have the momentum. They have the hot goaltender. The Eagles, they know they can win over there. They've done that a couple times this year. They do have a hot goaltender in Carter McPhail, but they're going to have to come out with a little more intensity, in my opinion, than they showed in Game 6. Only 10 shots the final 2 periods, and they're going to have to capitalize on their opportunities and put some more pucks on the net. So the winner of Game 7 will advance to take on the Rayside Balfour Canadians in the West Division Finals. Rayside won their series over Blind River by a 4-2 count, winning their last game over the weekend by the score of 4-1. So that series will start in Chelmsford, likely over the weekend, either Friday or Saturday. It'll either be the Sioux Thunderbirds or Sioux Eagles that will make the trek west or east. I get my directions mixed up sometimes. They'll go to Sudbury area, Chelmsford to be exact, as they will take on Rayside Balfour. In the East, how about this upset? The Timmins Rock completed a 4-2 series win in their East Division semifinal over the number 1 ranked Powassan Voodoos, as Timmins finished 50 points behind league-leading Powassan in the regular season. But it was Timmins who stole the show throughout this playoff series. They got that win in Powassan in Game 2, and they held serve at home, winning Games 3, 4, and 6. So Timmins, the 5th-place team in the East, are going to advance, or have advanced, to the Eastern Final, where they will take on the Cochrane Crunch. The Crunch completed a 4-1 series win over the Kirkland Lake Gold Miners on Sunday. That one will start on Friday in Cochrane. Timmins against the Cochrane Crunch. The West Final sees Rayside Balfour against either the Sioux Eagles or the Sioux Thunderbirds, and we won't know about that one until Wednesday. We'll definitely talk about it next week on the game as well. Dave McKeag on his show Thursday night will have a lot to say about that one. Let's move on to the Ontario Hockey League, and well, the Sioux Greyhounds are rolling, and they have had no trouble with the Saginaw Spirit in their Western Conference quarterfinal. Best of 7 series. The Hounds got off to a good start on Friday night at the SR Center as they defeated the Saginaw Spirit by the score of 5-2. Taylor Radish had a pair of second-period goals for the Hounds, while Jack Kapaka, Mac Hollowell, and Keenan Housdale had the other goals. Matthew Villalta made 19 saves in net for the victory, and the Hounds would continue their stellar play on Sunday afternoon, national television, at the SR Center. It was the Hounds who stormed out to a 4-0 lead after the first period, and they cruised to an 8-0 win in Game 2. Morgan Frost had 2 goals for the Hounds and an assist, while Jack Kapaka had a pair of goals. Boris Kachok, Keenan Housdale, Barrett Hayden, and Connor Timmins had the other goals, while Matthew Villalta made 21 saves in net for the shutout for the Sioux Greyhounds. And Game 3 was last night down in Saginaw. Well, the Hounds didn't get off to the best start. That game was actually tied after 2 periods of play at 2, but the Hounds exploded for 5 third-period goals on Monday night and put a stranglehold on their best of 7 Ontario Hockey League Western Conference quarterfinal with a 7-3 win over the Saginaw Spirit in Game 3. Taylor Radish had a pair of goals and an assist for the Hounds, while Boris Kachok also scored twice, with Rasmus Sandin, Hayden Verbeek, and Jack Kapaka also with solo tallies. Matthew Villalta made 23 saves in net for the win. Game 4 is tomorrow night in Saginaw. And if I'm a betting man, which I am, not on the Ontario Hockey League or any local sports, but in general, I would say I'm a betting man, I would go all in on the Hounds to sweep this series, as they are likely going to take on either Owen Sound or London, depending on how the other Western Division quarterfinals go. Well, Owen Sound is up 3-0 in their quarterfinal against the London Knights, winning 4-3 in overtime. Now, Owen Sound, the 4 seed, so they wouldn't meet the Hounds if the other 2 series hold the form, and those are pretty questionable right now. In the East, Barrie evened up their Eastern quarterfinal at 1 game apiece last night with a 5-3 win over the Mississauga Steelheads. Tonight, 6 games in the OHL, including the 2nd seed in the West, Kitchener, is at Guelph. Kitchener leads that series by a 2-0 count. Sarnia, the 3 seed, however, the second best team in the Ontario Hockey League, is at Windsor tonight. That series knotted at 1. In the East, the top seed Hamilton, the Bulldogs, they're at Ottawa with that series tied at 1. Kingston is at North Bay tonight. That series also knotted up at 1 game apiece. Niagara, up 2-0 in their series over Oshawa, is in Oshawa tonight for Game 3. And we mentioned Barrie and Mississauga tied at 1. Game 3 is tonight in Mississauga. So that is your junior hockey playoff roundup. We did have some other hockey over the weekend. As we know, the Frozen Four participants, which will be playing in St. Paul, Minnesota next week. And it has a definite Midwest feel, as all the teams are from the Midwest. Notre Dame, who technically plays in Hockey East, but they're a Midwest team. They're the number 1 seed. They were the number 1 seed, and they topped Providence 2-1 on Saturday to advance to the national semifinals, where they will take on the Michigan Wolverines. The Wolverines, 2nd seed in the Northeast. They advanced on Sunday with a 6-3 win over Boston University and Coach Mel Pearson's first season behind the bench for the Wolverines. The other semifinal, which will be played a week from Thursday, April 5th, will see Minnesota Duluth. How about this story? They barely got into the tournament, and they needed a whole lot of things to happen, or go their way, rather, in the conference tournament, which did. They were the 3 seed in the West. They knocked off upstart Air Force, who took out the top seed in the tournament, St. Cloud State. Minnesota defeated Air Force, or grounded them, if you will, by the score of 2-1. And the other team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, in only their second Final Four, they knocked off Denver 5-1 on Sunday. So your national semifinals, Notre Dame and Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota, Duluth, with the national championship game taking place on Saturday, April 7th in St. Paul. That is going to be a fun Frozen Four. And the WCHA teams didn't get any victories, but they both played well. Joey Sean and the Michigan Tech Huskies took Notre Dame to overtime before losing, and Minnesota State took Duluth to overtime before losing. And both those teams, they made the tournament. So WCHA getting a little bit better, and congratulations to Coach Joey Sean and the Michigan Tech Huskies for a very, very good season. Let's transition to high school basketball. Well, when we last talked last Monday, we were waiting the quarterfinal game in Escanaba between Cedarville and Dollar Bay. Well, it was all Dollar Bay. The Blue Bolts remained undefeated as Devin Schmidt scored 25 points to lead a Dollar Bay to their first ever state semifinal game, where they took out the Cedarville Trojans by the score of 74-68. So Cedarville ends their season at 21-4 in boys basketball, and a very successful season for Coach Duncan and the Trojans. So there were 4 state champions crowned in boys basketball at the Breslin Center on Saturday. That Dollar Bay team that we mentioned, well, they got crushed by Southfield Christian in the semifinal in Class D, and Southfield Christian would go on to win their first title since 2014 with a 64-54 win over Buckley. In Class C, Detroit Edison claimed yet another title for the PSL as they topped Maple City Glen Lake by the score of 53-38. In the best game of the night, or the session I should say, was Class B. Benton Harbor came back to win a thrilling 65-64 overtime win over Grand Rapids Catholic Central, winning their first state title since 1965. And in Class A, it was Clarkson once again winning back-to-back titles as they crushed Holland West Ottawa by the score of 81-38. Future Michigan State Spartan Foster Lohr, you want to talk about a tournament that this guy had. He scored 40 points in the state final. He scored 42 in the semifinals. Now, Michigan State, they seem to be getting a lot of these good players, but they're not the team that's still playing in the Final Four. That's Michigan. We'll talk more about both those programs with Butch Davis coming up on the game. One other basketball note, and this is going to be one of my thumbs up of the week. Lots of them this week. How about the Ferris State Bulldogs? Congratulations, bringing a NCAA Division II men's basketball championship to the state of Michigan for the very first time as they defeated Northern State over the weekend by the score of 71-69 in front of a record crowd at the Sanford Pentagon Saturday afternoon. Now, this is the first ever national championship for Ferris State in any sport. It caps off a season which saw the Bulldogs win a record 26 consecutive games. They went 38-1, and the only team they lost to was the Lake Superior State University Lakers back in December. And so way to go, Bulldogs. I know a lot of people around here were pulling for them, and they got it done and in a very exciting manner. And that's a great recruiting tool for Coach Henning. And we talked about that last week with him. He said, hey, what a great recruiting tool to be able to go to talk to a player and say, hey, the defending national champion, 38-1, we're the only team to beat them. So congratulations, Ferris. And good to see GLIAC basketball doing very well over the weekend. Ashland in women's basketball couldn't quite defend their title. They did lose in the final, but GLIAC basketball alive and well. Well, speaking of the Lakers, their spring athletics have started as the tennis team, the men's tennis team, was on the road over the weekend. They dropped a GLIAC conference matchup at Grand Valley on Saturday evening by an 8-1 count. The Lakers dropped all their doubles matches, and they did win one 3-set match in singles. That would be the number 5 singles as Luis Valderrama won a 3-set match, 3-6, 6-3, 7-6. As the Lakers would go to Ferris State on Sunday, a team that's ranked in the national rankings, and they fell to the Bulldogs by a 9-0 count. Now the Lakers are on the road again this week. They'll take on Michigan Tech on Saturday starting at 10 a.m. And finally, the Laker men's golf team. They're in action right now, or were earlier today, at the Findlay Invitational. Love that one, the name of my puppy. But they took 15th place out of 22 teams on day one. Freshman Nick Oosterhoff paced the Lakers with a team low 76 strokes on the day, finishing 4 over par. And again, they were in action today. We'll try to get those results here. If not before the end of the show, we'll get those on next week. We're going to take a break here on the game. But before we do, let's get to a little housekeeping as far as our shows and what's on the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Dave McKeag and his gang of merry men will have a show Wednesday night from SportsCenter Bar and Grill in Sioux, Ontario, talking about the NFL, talking about the NBA and other related sports. And then on Thursday night from Boston Pizza in Sioux, Ontario, Dave McKeag will be broadcasting his hockey portion and maybe even some baseball, because opening day will have been played, at least the day portion, on Thursday. And you can find both those shows here on thegamesportshow.podbean.com. We'll have another show probably next Tuesday night from the studios of Eagle 95.1, as it's Easter Monday on Monday. The Wicked Sister is closed, so that'll be myself and Butch Davis with another show. And you can hear podcasts of Butch on Sports, which he does 2 or 3 times a week. Also hear Sioux Eagles home games, as well as other sports-related materials on the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. We're going to take a break here on the game. When we come back, we're going to hear from the aforementioned Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports. Butch has a lot to say about the Tigers opening day coming up here on Thursday, the Pistons, the Red Wings, Michigan basketball. Heck, we may even talk Wrestlemania, because it's less than 2 weeks away. And you know, Butch and I, any chance to talk wrestling, we will. That's coming up on the game here on Eagle 95.1.
Get wicked at the Wicked Sister. You'll find the best tasting food for the whole family. Start off with some appetizers like the crab dip, served with warm naan bread strips and soft pretzel bites, or their antibiotic and hormone-free boneless chicken wings with 5 choices of sauces. Entrees include the barbecue pulled pork sandwich, the #1 selling drunken cow burger, or Philly cheesesteaks, and they're on special all day Thursdays. The Wicked Sister also offers a gluten-free menu and catering. Bring the whole family. The Wicked Sister, downtown Ashman Street, open 7 days a week.
Thank you for tuning in to the game. Heard Monday nights from the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street on Eagle 95.1. Also online at radioeaglesioux.com and the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. I hope you're enjoying the broadcast. Now, if you want to hear more of the Twin Sioux only local, regional, and national talk show, I encourage you to visit our website at thegamesportshow.com, and you can tune into a pair of broadcasts of the Game Sports Show from Sioux, Ontario. Our co-host here on the game, Mr. Electric Avenue Dave McKeag, broadcasts the show on Wednesday night from SportsCenter Bar and Grill in Sioux, Ontario, along with his regular contributors, Jamie Antonello, Justin Heichel, and Dane Hantro. They focus on football with their In the Pocket segment, talking about the NFL, along with basketball and the NBA, and other sports, including tennis, golf, soccer, and the WWE. If you like hockey, Thursday nights are for you, as the Game Sports Show is broadcasting from Boston Pizza in Sioux, Ontario, with Dave McKeag, along with his regular contributors, Justin Heichel and Dane Hantro. Now, this show focuses on hockey in the wintertime and baseball in the summer, and will include guests and interviews from local and national figures. Once again, you can hear 3 versions of the game at our website, thegamesportshow.com, or at the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Also on the podcast page, you will find selected audio broadcasts of Sioux Eagles home games, Brimley Bay's basketball, and Sioux High Blue Devil hockey, along with game contributor Butch Davis and his broadcasts of Butch on Sports. You can also find us on YouTube. Look for the Scott Nason channel. Thank you for listening, and keep it locked here to the game for all your local, regional, and national sports talk that you just can't get enough of.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game! It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control. And if you can take it, it's all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pain. And who's gonna make it?
Welcome back to the game on Eagle 95.1. Scott Nason, broadcasting from the studios of Eagle 95.1 in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan on this special Tuesday night edition. And we're joined by Butch Davis from the Telegram News and the radio show Butch on Sports. Butch joins us each and every week to talk about a variety of things, especially the Metro Detroit sports scene. Butch, how you doing on this Tuesday night, sir?
Oh, I'm doing closer and closer to the end of the week here.
Absolutely, Butch. Well, there's lots of sports to talk about. I guess I want to start with the NCAA basketball Final Four, the University of Michigan, one of the four teams that is in the men's basketball Final Four. They're going to take on Loyola of Chicago on Saturday in the first game down in San Antonio. The second game sees Kansas taking on Villanova, both one seeds. Just your overall thoughts on Michigan's performance and the NCAA tournament in general.
It's Jalen Rose, 100-year-old grandma against Sister Jean there.
I love it.
I can't wait here.
That's great. Good job, Jalen.
Yeah, he socked it to him here. I got to tell my boy before he goes on the air for next week, as you know, congratulations to him also. He's going to be doing the daily sports show in the morning for ESPN here. But enough about Jalen here. University of Michigan, I told you so, everybody. I told you so that University of Michigan will be in the Final Four. Now, Loyola of Chicago did not know, but hey, they're there. And there's always some surprises that come about there, and they shocked everybody indeed. There was no shocker on the other side of the fence, Kansas against Villanova there. That's going to be a humdinger. But again, Michigan, our team in there, they're being very quiet right now, and they're not going to talk to anybody until they get to San Antonio, which it'll be Thursday morning there. I say Thursday afternoon, they'll be able to talk to people and give their impression about what they think they can do, or as little as possible to give no edge to Loyola's -Chicago. And let's put that there, -Chicago of Loyola there. You know, this is going to be good.
That really is, Butch, and you look at that game, and you look at this Michigan team, and this is coming from a guy that's a Michigan State fan right here, but you look at the job that Beeline has done at Michigan. This is their second Final Four. This is their third Elite Eight in the last 6 years, and he is really building a solid program and doing it seems like, in the right way, in my opinion. I mean, he's a humble guy. He gets guys in to buy into his system. I mean, they're not flash, they're not dash, but they play good defense. They can shoot the ball at times. This is just a team that really flew under the radar most of the season. They beat Michigan State. They beat Purdue. They get hot in the Big Ten tournament, and I got to give credit to you, sir. You called them in the Final Four, and this is just a fun team to watch, in my opinion, Butch.
Very fun team, but we can't forget the toughness that this team provides every single game they go out and play there. They were kind of sloppy in the early portion of the season, but it doesn't count in the early portion of the season. It counts at the end, and that's when this team really got hot and started beating some good teams out there. Purdue, you mentioned one of them there. Michigan State, they co-cocked them a couple of times there and gave them their once and over there that they can't get enough of. And it just, I picked them because at the end of the season, this team was humming.
Yep.
And Michigan State was not. And when you don't have one team balancing over the other, as far as a competition is concerned, regardless of what they did throughout the season, I mean, who's the team that's going out there beating everybody's behind up there? And it was Michigan there. And the discipline is there. These kids, sure enough, played, and this is very much so important. When the offense wasn't working, they continued to play defense. That's a lesson that the Detroit Pistons can take all the way to the bank there. They did not stop playing defense. That kept them in a mini game. So that when their offense was start clicking there, they were able to overtake some teams and also do some winning.
Butch, let's keep the basketball theme. I talked about this a little bit earlier as far as the state championships this weekend at the Breslin Center for the boys. A couple games of note there. Southfield Christian in Class D, the team that knocked out the last UP team, they win their first title since 2014 with a 10-point win over Buckley. Detroit Edison in Class C wins another title for the PSL as they topped Maple City Glen Lake 53-38. The game of the day was the Class B at night. Benton Harbor winning their first state title since 1965. I'm always a fan when the public school beats the private school. They beat Grand Rapids Catholic Central 65-64. And in Class A, Clarkson wins again, back-to-back titles as they crush Holland West Ottawa 81-38. Did you happen to see any of the games and your thoughts on what was a pretty exciting day of basketball?
Of course, I checked the Friday game, which was River Rouge and Benton Harbor, and that was no contest. Very tight up score during the halftime, but after the halftime, Benton Harbor showed their oats, and they beat the crap out of the Panthers of River Rouge there, and that just took everything out, the sales out of everything. River Rouge had come home. Benton Harbor continued to make sure that the city or whoever, the public school of Benton Harbor, pays the bills for the hotel fares and maybe some hamburgers or some pizzas or whatever it's going to take to get these guys going, which they did. Tremendous 1-point victory for that particular team. I couldn't say enough. Southfield Christian is another team that I get to see a whole heck of a lot because they do a lot of their playing in the downriver area. Inner City Baptist, another good team out here, along with Gabriel Richard of Riverview. They have played, and I got to see them, and they've always were very competitive, been very competitive for years and years now. They deserve to win and did a good job of it. Detroit Edison, I have seen a couple of times there, both the girls and the boys. And again, this particular school is pumping out some doggone good teams there. Dynasty is maybe being formed at that particular location.
Butch, let's keep the basketball talk. The Detroit Pistons are getting hot. It may be a case of too little, too late as they defeated the L.A. Lakers last night at Little Caesars Arena by the score of 112-106. Reggie Jackson, back in his fourth game, scored 20 points. The Pistons still a ways out of the playoff hunt. They do have hope, but not much. They remain 5 games behind Miami for the 8th and final playoff spot in the East. They'll host Washington on Thursday. State of the Pistons, and are they doing enough late to possibly save Stan Van Gundy's job, in your opinion?
No.
I agree.
And I say no, and whoever right now, Stan Van Gundy's trying to say if we had Reggie Jackson the whole season, we would be in better shape. I'm not buying that at all here.
Agree.
I'm really not buying it. It's like saying if you lay paper down, the dog will poop on the paper. Knowing good and well, if you don't train him to use that paper, he's going to go elsewhere there. And right now,
that's the greatest analogy you've ever had, Butch. I love it.
I tell you, the Pistons wouldn't, lay their eggs elsewhere here all season long. The biggest problem with the Pistons was with rotation again. When Reggie Jackson come back, now you're able to even the rotation. It's a doggone shame that Ish Smith doesn't embrace a starting role here. He did not. Maybe at the beginning he did, but he did not here. It was not good in the barrel end of the season there coming up, starting for the Pistons. It just seemed like they were just lost there. Now, the big difference right now with the particular team that's being placed on the floor is not so much a whole heck of a lot of Reggie Jackson, but again, you're putting in 10 men in the game there, and that was one of my biggest complaints throughout the season. Stan Van Gundy seemed to play 8 men or overwork a lot of people there. And last night, Blake Griffin got in a whole heck of a lot of foul trouble, but again, did not stop him from giving the yeoman's effort when he was on the floor and kind of lowering back the time that they spent on the floor. Only Reggie Jackson only spent 28 minutes. That's all he should be doing. If he puts him out there for 30, 40 minutes, Stan Van Gundy is going to be cited for doing some ungodly things to a particular human being who was not in the lineup all season long there. And I would hate to see that happen where Reggie Jackson caused further injury if he was injured that doggone bad. It can be something that will puzzle me. But again, I don't think that's going to hold his job and whatnot. Something has to be done by we getting a coach on this particular team that knows how to gel players and motivate players. And Stan Van Gundy did not do a very good job of that.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. Butch is at the games, on press row, in the locker room. We love having him on, getting a first-hand account on what's going on in the world of Detroit sports. Butch, really not much to talk about the Red Wings. They lost again last night to Montreal. They're in action as we speak at Little Caesars Arena against Pittsburgh. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the NCAA Frozen Four. We talked about it earlier. A very Midwest Frozen Four. Michigan, under first-year head coach Mel Pearson, former coach of Michigan Tech. They make a Final Four as they beat Boston University. They'll take on Notre Dame, coached by former Laker hockey coach Jeff Jackson. The Irish are in. And then on the other side of the bracket, Minnesota Duluth, a team on the other side of Lake Superior from where I am at. They will take on Ohio State. Frozen Four, a Midwest feel in St. Paul. You got to be liking that, Butch.
Oh man, you know, we talk about hockey a whole heck of a lot there. In particular, University of Michigan, no one thought they would again rally to be in the Final Four. But again, this particular coach that you just mentioned had a way with getting his teams motivated and getting them in there to play some doggone decent hockey throughout the season. Ohio State, in a couple, at least a couple times, had beat Michigan there. I was very afraid that Michigan wouldn't make the cut, but again, they showed their oaths and they made it. Ohio State, good team, very close by. Notre Dame, close team, very close by. Michigan Tech, a little farther up north there, but still a very good team. And this is like the old CCHA days here.
You're right.
When you had, these were the teams that always gave a great effort in being in those particular tournaments and whatnot, especially when it came down to the Joe Louis Arena there. Only thing that's not really in the peak there, they're going to be up in St. Paul, but that would have been very nice to have that particular game down at Little Caesars Arena there.
Sure would, Butch. Anything to add on the Red Wings? I mean, they're playing out the string, probably hoping they lose to get better draft picks. Anything you want to add about them before we get on to the Tigers?
Well, I think very simply that we all knew that the Red Wings were not going to be all that good, okay? My biggest shocker was that the veterans had to show a lot more leadership to them young kids to come in and do that. They was very slow on bringing those young kids aboard because of particular players that they kept for a long period of time before they started the trading exposition there. However, I said it, throughout the year and then past that Red Wings had all they needed up in Grand Rapids. It was a matter of them bringing those kids down and giving them pro experience there. I don't think they're far off. The draft choice is going to be nice, but they got to if they get someone who can immediately come in, such as a Larkin or something like that, and give the Red Wings something to cheer about there, this thing is going to be smashed up for a minute. I don't think they're going to be smashed up at all. I think next year will be a very good year for this team to make the playoffs. They may not go far, but again, we'll have a bunch of kids right now who used to playing with each other, getting out there, taking it to the pro level of the game. And now you got some familiarity toward the coach of the Red Wings who've seen these kids before, and some of them have coached to give him the rope he needs to get every doggone thing in line there. The question going to be, is they're going to keep Jimmy Howard? But again, I think they will keep him. I think some of the veterans, they're going to keep him until they retire. I don't think they're going to let him go or throw him out in the street. But again, it's a very limited number of those veterans going to be around.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. Butch, big week in Detroit. It is opening day in March, Thursday. And, it looks like rain showers expected, potentially that could possibly cancel that game as the Detroit Tigers will open their season, I should say, at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Tigers did win their final spring training game today, 2-1 over Tampa Bay. Butch, the expectations are low for the Detroit Tigers this year. I saw a publication that picked them 70-92, fourth place in the AL Central. Give us the state of the Tigers heading into opening day on Thursday.
And yes, of course, I'm not going along with all the BS going on there.
Good.
By the way, Kirk Gibson's son was the hero of the day when he blasted a single in right field there to bring in that winning run there for the Detroit Tigers.
I see that right now. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that little, I watched that too. And, the Tigers right now, you look at their starting pitching. I think it's legitimate, okay? And I think that's what's going to hold them in a whole heck of a lot. Now, it's going to be up to the players on that field, and it's young, Matus, including a whole slew of new players going to be placed in that lineup. Will they be able to gel, and will the veteran players be able to have some influence over those kids to go a little bit above and beyond their abilities so they can be competitive throughout the season there? And they got some good veterans. Victor Martinez, if he continues to do what he's doing during the spring and bring it up north, that was missing last year. We can do that. That's going to give them some wins. Miguel Cabrera, of course, if he does his hitting, that's going to bring in runs and whatever it may be. We're depending on maybe a faster, more excitable team there. They're going to make some mistakes and errors, but I don't think they're going to be that far off of being in last place this year. I think they're going to do a lot better job. They may not get in the playoffs per se there, but I think this team is going to be very competitive.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. Butch, let's transition into our roundtable discussion. We got about 20 more minutes or so. This is where you and I, and sometimes others, debate, talk about, inform on some of the topics in the world of sports. So, Butch, I'm going to give you first crack on the roundtable. What would you like to bring up tonight, sir?
Well, there's many things we could talk about. The WWE, I'm quite sure you're going to slap that on in there. We'll probably get
Yes,
it
we will.
before this show's over here. Let's talk about the NFL today. They passed a couple of rules, one about an hour ago and one early in the day about the catch rule, something that has been lagging for the NFL to make a huge decision on about what's a catch and what's not a catch. And we know there's a lot of those catches that were called incomplete. They should have been catches. No more that'll be the case where you have to show control and this and that. If they use a football move during the catch and whatever it may be, that rule's going to stay. And many of those catches that were showed incomplete are now going to be either touchdowns or complete catches. The other rule that came into play about an hour ago is using the helmet as a weapon. We've seen a whole heck of a lot of injuries. It was reported that more injuries with the helmet this year, and for that matter, the last 3 years, has been up in the NFL, regardless of the helmet-to-helmet rule. That is going to be still in the play, but now the targeting rule that the NCAA has in place is going to be similar to the helmet rule of hitting the player in contact with that, using that crown of that helmet or any parts of that helmet for injuries. And want to get your thoughts on that there.
I just had a chance to look at it, Butch, just before we went on air, especially the helmet-to-helmet rule. This is a very significant change. The NFL approved the broadening of the helmet hit rule that will penalize players who lead with the crown of their helmets to initiate contact against an opponent on any play. Offending players would be penalized 15 yards and may be disqualified depending on the severity of the hit. The league felt it was time to make the change in order to better enhance player safety. Clubs will continue to work on a targeting rule similar to the college football rule, Butch, as you alluded to, in which players would be automatically ejected for hitting with the helmet. Nothing regarding a targeting rule has been finalized by the NFL. And, this is just you got to get everybody on board as far as these type of hits, because we've just seen so many of these things go wrong over the years. And obviously player safety is number one. And when you see some of the effects of what has happened when players have been hit in the head. There was a series over this past weekend on Mr. Hernandez there, the tight end for the New England Patriots there, who killed himself there in the prison cell, and just some of the effects of these head-to-head hits. And you've seen the movie Concussion. I mean, there's just a lot of it that needs to be improved. And I think this is a definite good move by the NFL, in addition to the new catch rule, which was unanimously approved by all the owners, 32-0. And so this new rule defines a catch, including control of the ball, 2 feet down or another body part, a football move such as a third step, reaching, extending for the line to gain, or the ability to perform such an act. The key change of the rule eliminated the going to the ground element of the previous rule. The NFL's hope is that this new rule will eradicate some of the frustration that coaches and players have had with apparent catches. We've seen that several times. Last year, you go back to that Steelers game against New England where tight end Jesse James went in and they reversed it. You saw it back in 2014, Des Bryant against the Green Bay Packers. And so I think this just will remove some of the confusion. Butch, I know you and I talked about it during the season. I mean, it was pretty much a no-brainer. So I think both these rules and the rules changes are good, and I like the NFL addressing this head on, and no pun intended, to make better changes for clarity as far as catches and for player safety as far as the helmet-to-helmet situations. Your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, well, we can take it all the way back to Calvin Johnson. Okay,
exactly.
Was one of the first snafus that the NFL has made, maybe a couple times with the Detroit Lions on many plays. Eric Inbrown was another one that basically comes to mind when he caught the ball but did not have possession, so they claim. It's a mess. Hopefully this cleans it up. It makes it a lot more awareness of the fact that now players don't have to do certain things in order to kind of punish themselves, or for that matter, have to make certain adjustments when basically these particular plays, long time ago, were not enforced that way here. This has been a problem for the NFL the last 4 or 5 years on what a catch is, and I don't know how the referees got away from doing things the old-fashioned way, but again, they now have fixed that. Hopefully, the referees and the officials are all on board, and also the teams being on board, what is a catch and what's not a catch. So it simplifies a little bit easier. Now for the helmet rule, that has been a rule that is long overdue. And not so much the NFL per se, those guys who get paid a whole heck of a lot of money, and so maybe the college kids who right now being taught not to do it in the first place, or they'll be lost in the game because the college seem like they're not playing around when it comes down to using that helmet.
Right.
But I feel very good, and hopefully, now this is the hard part because we are around a lot of kids in their little league or maybe their midget league type of football leagues are being taught the right way how to tackle, okay? And that has been a huge component that it has to be a lot more training with coaches, with these kids going out here showing how to make a tackle, okay? They do what they see on the telly, okay? And I'm sad to say many of the coaches who think they're in the NFL or maybe in college screws it up and portrays these little kids to be this particular type of player where they're also using the crown of their helmet and causing a whole heck of a lot of injury at that state of the game. So hopefully that's cleaned up. I hope that the state of Michigan gets on board and involve more training for the coaches how to show these kids the proper way how to tackle there. That will evolve into college or high school, I should say, and probably will evolve in the NFL. It's going to take a while for some players to get used to not using that crown of their helmet because they're being taught so much in practice. But again, things can happen in the old 9 yards. So we'll see what happens on that particular deal here.
Well said, Butch. That's not Roger Goodell calling you, is it?
No, it's some chick up north.
Good stuff tonight, Butch.
Okay.
Let's continue with the round table.
And I'm not
As
right.
we will continue our sports discussion, in this case, sports entertainment discussion, Butch, I want to bring up WrestleMania 34. The road to WrestleMania is nearing its end. We still have about a week and 5 days, not that I'm counting. On Sunday, April 8th, WrestleMania 34 will be taking place in New Orleans. SmackDown about to start here in a few minutes. We saw Raw last night, and I wanted to talk about, of the matches that we know about, Butch, just overall WrestleMania talk, but of the matches that we know about, which one are you most excited about? Let's talk about the matches that we know are going to happen. Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns. We've known that since the last WrestleMania that was going to happen. The WWE Championship, and AJ Styles, who currently holds the belt, will take on Shinsuke Nakamura. Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle in a mixed tag team match will take on Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. The SmackDown Women's Championship sees the title holder Charlotte Flair take on Asuka. The Raw Women's Championship sees the title holder Alexa Bliss taking on Nia Jax. Intercontinental Championship, The Miz, who currently holds it, is going to be in a three-way match against Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. U.S. Championship held by Randy Orton, another three-way match, will take on the glorious one, Bobby Roode and Jinder Mahal. The Raw Tag Team Championship, The Bar, which is Sheamus and Cesaro, will take on Braun Strowman and a wrestler to be determined. Cruiserweight Championship, Cedric Alexander versus Mustafa Ali. They also have a couple Battle Royals. We're still getting a bunch of names in there. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal for the men and the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal for the women. And there are a few other matches that likely will take place. The biggest one being The Undertaker and John Cena. I would be shocked right now if that one doesn't take place. As well, Daniel Bryan, who has been cleared to wrestle, will take on likely Shane McMahon, maybe with a tag team partner, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. You got the Usos, you got the New Day, you got the Bludgeon Brothers, you got Bray Wyatt, you got Samoa Joe possibly coming back. There's just so much going on, Butch. I want your thoughts on WrestleMania coming up here in a matter of 12 days.
Boy, you cleaned up house on that there.
I did. I printed it out.
The biggest, I called the Oscar and the Charlotte Flair that would be the better match, and they made it the better match. Okay, so I guess that one right there. Also the Nia Jax and the other lady, the Miss Blitz here. I called that one too. So somebody's listening to our podcast. You know what I'm saying? We're getting raving reviews here lately. A lot of people listen to the podcast. And by the way, I would like to thank everybody for listening to Butch on Sports through the Podbean system there. That ratio of people listening to the show, our podcast, has gone up. Okay,
a lot of traffic, Butch.
Very good here. Keep on listening, boys and girls, and we'll keep on giving you all the goodies that need to be. The biggest match is the big fella has not picked a partner. I don't know if it's going to be Elias, Bray Wyatt, oh boy, Samoa Joe, maybe Daniel Bryan, or maybe just being calling out because maybe the Undertaker is not ready to do any battle due to hip surgery and all this other stuff there, which basically will put anybody out of a tremor there. Would ask John Cena to take a portion in this. But whatever it is, and we haven't mentioned the brothers, they had the wrestling match over at the house, okay? We haven't mentioned them, okay? So, and just through saying there's a lot of people right now who has not been fitted in this WrestleMania yet that we haven't heard of. For what I'm seeing right now, this WrestleMania is going to be pretty doggone active here. And it's a 4-hour event that I think every match should be and will be a very good match.
I think so as well, Butch. I mean, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to renew my subscription probably this week, at least for another month. But the one I'm really looking forward to, I'm looking forward to both women's matches. I think the women's division over the past year or so has really come into its own. We kind of saw when you had the Sasha Banks, the Baileys, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, when they ascended to the WWE. At first, it was a little, I don't know, there wasn't a whole lot there, and they had such a good storyline. The four horsewomen down in NXT, and it took a while for that to get going, and then you added Nia Jax, then you added Alexa Bliss, who I'm a huge fan of. Alexa Bliss. I mean, she is great on the microphone, and she plays the heel role very good. And apparently, it's funny, my Alexa Butch, when I said Alexa Bliss, just went off on me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Hang on, let me get Alexa, stop. There you go. That's live radio right there, Butch.
I never like it. This is boys and girls.
It's good stuff. Let me continue talking about Miss Bliss before I shoot off my Alexa over there again. She's been a great addition to the show, and then you have Asuka on there. I mean, I'm really excited about the women's matches, but AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, I think, could be the show stealer of all the matches. Those both perform very well. I'm a huge AJ Styles fan. Two guys that have taken a long time to get where they're at. And they could bring the house down in New Orleans. But you know what, Butch? There's always those surprises, and I'm hoping for one or two. And we'll just have to watch this week and see, won't we?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see. A lot of New Japan matches coming into play there. We haven't mentioned Chris Jericho, who's with New Japan Wrestling right now, okay? We haven't mentioned a whole heck of a lot of other people who could come into play in this particular like surprises was last year when we had the brothers come into play in the tag team match. Expect some more of that goodies to come on in there. Something's gonna jump, okay? Hulk Hogan, we haven't mentioned him that the WWE right now is having all kind of negotiations with. And hopefully this guy don't wrestle, okay? But again, we're hearing a whole heck of a lot of names being flirted around and whatnot there. I'm going to say this right now. They have an all-star event here in Michigan on the 21st in Royal Oak here. Where it's the old timers of wrestling there. Where basically this is going to be, you got the $1 Million Man, you got Ric Flair, you have a whole heck of a lot of people who basically you don't get to see too much often, but you did see them. Rick Foley is another one being mentioned. We'll talk about that a little bit more next week here, but where I have the actual lineup of the wrestlers going to be coming into play on April the 21st here in Royal Oak here, but it's going to be something to behold there. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be some shockers here because I'm quite sure Vince McMahon knows about this, and these are a lot of Hall of Famers that are already in the WWE Hall of Fame, but yet still out there to make a little bit more money there. It just so happens, I just kind of wonder how they're going to go about doing that there. So it's going to happen.
But you get us the information on that card next week. My grandma lives in Royal Oak. I know a good friend of mine, Don Supa, who's listening tonight. He's a big wrestling guy. Boy, I could see an April road trip to see this thing.
Oh, yeah, Eric Bischoff, okay?
Man, now you're really killing me.
The Bischoff brothers, I know Eric very well from Championship Wrestling down south, and I got to see him a whole heck of a lot up north when I first came back to Detroit, Michigan. Him and his brother there involved in wrestling a whole heck of a lot in the state. This is going to be fun, man, but we'll get some information on that and relay it to all our fans on next Monday. So a little tease there for the show next week.
Love it, Butch, and look forward to hearing all about it. Let's get to our thumbs up and thumbs down for the week. Butch, I will start. Got to give a thumbs up. We haven't mentioned it yet in this segment, but thumbs up to the Ferris State Bulldogs. Their men's basketball team takes home the Division II title, the first ever in the state of Michigan, as they won their game on national TV on Saturday. Great story. Ferris State 38-1. The only team that they lost to this year was the Lake Superior State University Lakers up here in Sault Ste. Marie in December. A fun team to watch. Great coach who got Division II Coach of the Year. Big 2 thumbs up to the Ferris State Bulldogs bringing home a national title to the state of Michigan. And you got to give a thumbs up to the Michigan Wolverines for making a Final Four and to their head coach John Beilein. And also it should say another thumbs up to the Michigan Wolverines in hockey and first-year coach Mel Pearson for getting to the Frozen Four. And thumbs down, you know what? It's Easter week. I got no thumbs down. I guess if I had to give a thumbs down to the Pistons because they should be in the playoffs and they're not. So that's all I got. Butcher, thumbs up and thumbs down for the week, sir.
Oh, that was a good one here. I definitely give a thumbs up to the Fair State Bully Dogs here, who basically did their thing throughout the country there and brought it back to the state. Hip hip hooray for them. I'm also going to give a thumbs up to the Chippewas of the women's team there who made that switch, that Sweet 16 did, and also the Elite Eight, but they kind of messed it up for themselves there because it's a team called Oregon.
Yes.
Oh well. That I want to bet with the principal where I work at right now, who is a Chippewa extraordinaire and a graduate there, and of course yours truly is a graduate of the University of Oregon. I get to rub her face in. I wish I had a duck head that she could have put on her head or something there. Well, thumbs down, and I'm not going to be afraid to say that the gentleman from Michigan State who got arrested today, who got arraigned today, that is pitiful. I'm going to see more to come on that investigation there. And you hope and pray that, these kids who are innocent of a lot of things going on when they come to college there, it does not affect them scholastically, or basically their parents said, we just don't want to go there because Michigan State does not know how to police their particulars there. I'll say it once, I've said it on my show that particular situation is not going to be cleaned up until they get rid of a lot of those board members there. So those are the culprits that I want to see gone. Maybe not physically on this particular occasion there, but, they let a lot of things go where they should have spoke up and got rid of some of these people in the get-go themselves. They had the power to do this, and they didn't do it. Now you got the prosecutor, the state of Michigan, doing the work, and hopefully he gets a fine-tuned job in getting this done.
I couldn't agree more, Butch. They need to clean up that mess in East Lansing. No question about it. Butch, we're going to have your podcast on the podcast page of this show, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Give us a little preview on what you have in store this week, sir.
We're going to talk about the Lions a little bit here. Tomorrow we'll definitely deal with the beginning of opening day, which yours truly will be there early and often there. Downtown, they say it will not start raining till around about 3 or 4 o'clock that afternoon, but it's all about the smells of the old carpools and everything going on, and the daily. This is my doggone it in a row here. I think it's my 19th in a row of opening day. Fantastics there for the Detroit Tigers. And if I go back with Seattle and some other opening days that I have covered, it's a whole heck of a lot there. So only thing you can remember is when your dad allowed you to skip school for opening day, and the residuals was not all that to be, but you look forward to that hot dog and that hot chocolate that they used to serve up there at old Tiger Stadium there, which, by the way, thumbs up to the Powell League, okay? The corner of Michigan in Trouble is now featuring baseball teams playing over there, high school, little league, Powell alike, and let's give Corktown and all those people with the Powell League a hip hip hooray. That location is now not just dirt anymore. It's a beautiful facility, and by golly, let's go visit there and cheer on those kids, and some special events is going to be there.
Butch, that's a great story right there. I remember passing the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. Boy, this is about 5-6 years ago. I was at a conference in downtown Detroit. I exited that way, and it almost brought a tear to my eye where that became, and it's really good to hear that it's becoming something else, and really goes along with the revitalization of the entire city of Detroit compared to where I was 5-6 years ago there, and to see where it is now. Got to give a lot of thumbs up for that.
Very much so. Yes, indeed.
Butch, I want to thank you for joining us here on The Game. We'll look forward to your show, Butch on Sports, later on this week, and we will talk to you next week here on this show, The Game.
All right. I'll be ready and able, and We'll be back Monday, won't we?
Actually, we'll be back on Tuesday, Butch. I had a chance to talk with Kathy at the Wicked Sister because Monday is Easter Monday. They are going to be closed. So you and I got a chance to do this again next week at this time, my friend?
We'll be able to talk about WrestleMania exclusively then because everything should be ready to go.
That's right. So we will talk to you next Tuesday, Butch, and thank you for joining us once again.
All right, thank you.
Don't forget, we'll have a special edition of the Game Sports Show with Dave McKeag coming up this week, Wednesday, from Sports Center Bar and Grill in Sioux, Ontario, talking about the NBA along with the National Football League and other sports-related topics. And then on Thursday night, Dave and his crew will be at Boston Pizza in Sioux, Ontario, talking about hockey, National Hockey League, OHL playoffs, NOJHL playoffs, and even some baseball talk as well. We'll be into the baseball season on Thursday. That's going to do it here from our studios on Ashman Street. I want to thank Butch Davis for joining us. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and making this show an ever-growing show. We're getting lots of traffic on the website. We're getting lots of people listening on the radio, and Butch and I, speaking for Butch, want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. That's going to do it here on The Game. We'll talk to you next week here on Eagle 95.1.